race fans, Brian Aho here and the one and only Bert Lehman. Bert, how's it going this week?
It's going all right so far. Weather says it's supposed to get nicer for the weekend.
Finally, right? Finally. I mean, you got a little teaser there a couple weeks ago in Shawano, and then Mother Nature took over again, but it was rain instead of snow, which is good. But I think we're getting on the verge, and we're going to talk a lot. This whole show, most of the show is going to be touching on the upcoming Wissota season, the upcoming season in your neck of the woods, Shawano, Dirt Kings. We're going to talk about some predictions, our local guys, and I'm excited to do that. I've been itching, Bert. How about you to talk local racing? I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the national guys, but local racing, I love local racing. How about you?
Well, yeah, I love local racing, and I mean, when we're recording this show, it's May 3rd, and you can probably count the number of races held at a Wisconsin track on one hand so far this season, which is very unusual for this time of the year.
The first was on Sunday, right? May 1st was Sunday. So, I mean, if you look at the Wissota season, they got one feature in total in the entire month of April. One. Everything else rained out. I think Ben from Dirt Race Central said that they had more cancellations in April, I think, than they had like all of last year. It was crazy, like huge cancellations. And for the tire situation, probably good, but let's face it, we're itching to get racing. I mean, we'll figure the tires out. Let's go racing. But this episode, Bert, of course, brought to you a local racer himself, Trevor Anderson, but Dirt Track Supply over in Watertown, South Dakota. I know they're itching to get racing too, right? Because they supply parts to a lot of different racetracks over in western Minnesota and in South Dakota. And, you know, if you need parts, I mean, you should be ready to go. Racing was supposed to start a couple weeks ago. You should be ready. But if there's some little things that you need, get a hold of Trevor and Ron over at Dirt Track Supply. They'll take good care of you. They'll get you what you need. Get on the list, become their customer. You want to do that because they get more tires, right? Because they have a lot of customers. Get on their list, and you'll be glad you did. Speaking of Dirt Track Supply, one race already this weekend, or this week. Out in, I guess it would have been in Wyoming. Bert, Aero Nation, of course, Dirt Track Supply. Ron builds those cars. Ron and Trevor, Aero Nation in Victory Lane already. How about it? Jeremy Castro, who was really strong at the end of last year. He was up in the top 5 in the Wissota national standings in the street stocks. He got her done out in Sheridan, Wyoming, parked it in Victory Lane, and he's starting the season right where he left off. Rob Petroff, you got your work cut out for you. This cat's he's no joke. He's getting after it. Chad Switzenberg got it done in the Midwest Mods. Did you get a chance to I didn't see if they had any streaming, so I didn't see anything, but I did notice that there was an Aero in Victory Lane. Did you see any local events or anything streamed this past weekend? I know I did.
I did not see any local stuff this past weekend. Everything in eastern Wisconsin was canceled, and I know Red Cedar did race a little bit Friday night, but I didn't watch any of the streaming. And
it was on Dirt Track or Dirt Race Central, right? So I mean, I should probably go back and watch it. They only got one feature in, but that feature, Azuli Race Engine, another proud sponsor of the show, Jeff Nowak, the official first feature winner of the 2022 season in Wissota Auto Racing. Tip of the cap, Jeff Nowak, great job. And he ended last year, Bert, the second half of last year, converted asphalt guy, really looked good the second half, won a prelim feature over at the Wissota 100. He went out west. He went out to Vegas here over the winter, ran really well out there. So Jeff Nowak, he might be a force to be reckoned with. Those central Wisconsin guys, tell you what, they're tough in the street stocks. Parker Anderson's gone, but now Nowak's here, so that could be the guy this year. All the other features, as you mentioned, they rained out at Menominee. I don't know. I haven't seen when they're going to make those up. I'm sure they'll have that on their Facebook page.
I thought I read they're making them up this coming week.
Really? That surprises me. I mean, I get, they're racing Friday, I assume, even though Mississippi Thunder's racing their 3 nights at the Dairyland Showdown. So you might be right. I did not check that out. I'm sure it's on their Facebook page. But they got a few features, which is interesting because I'm thinking a couple of those drivers might miss them, right? They might go down to Mississippi Thunder versus going to Menominee. So I'm going to hope that they're not making up features that might take cars that are going to go there. Hopefully it's just the other classes. I guess I'm not really sure. But with that said, let's get to the meat of the show. Mother Nature finally looks like she's going to play nice. Finally. Right here. Knock on wood. Knock on wood. I can't promise anything, right? But it looks like there's going to be some racing this week for sure. Now, with that said, I did talk to some track promoters, Bert, and even though the weather looks like it might cooperate this weekend, there's still a handful of tracks that said the track's not ready. You know, it's too soft. There's been so much saturation that even though the weather looks like they might be able to race, they pushed it back, and there's some thinking they might push it back yet because, let's face it, you know, we don't need to get into the cost of race cars. We know it costs too much. They don't want to be destroying stuff on night one.
Well, and I mean, just to show how bad of a spring this has been weather-wise, and this isn't racing related, but I'm sure there's some fishermen who watch this podcast, and fishing starts this. Opening of fishing is this weekend, and I heard a news report that some of the lakes in northern Wisconsin still have ice on them, and some people are still ice fishing.
I talked to Jeff just a little bit ago here today, and he's got family up in northern Minnesota, so Lake Vermilion. He said as of a couple days ago, there was still over 20 inches of ice on Vermilion. And we're like a week out roughly, or I guess 2 weeks out maybe from opening of fishing in northern Minnesota. I'm pretty skeptical. We don't need a reenactment of the Titanic. So if you're going fishing, which you should be going racing, not fishing, but if you are, watch out for them icebergs.
Well, I did see a meme circulating on Facebook of where there's open water and there's a boat and people are fishing off the boat. And then in the foreground, there's ice on the lake and somebody's ice fishing.
Well, did you see them pictures of them haulers up in Grand Forks? Because all that snow and everything melting, and there's like rivers and roads washing out. And, you know, quite frankly, and how it happens. So for y'all in the South that are watching the show, we have what's called frost, okay? Northern Minnesota, the frost gets deep in the ground. And when everything's melting, if that frost is still there, the water just runs. It doesn't saturate into the ground. So that's the problem they're running into up in North Dakota, Grand Forks area. And hopefully that's kind of subsiding. But, you know, that affects farming, that affects racetracks, that affects a lot of things. But it was a crazy year. There was a lot of precipitation. Hopefully there was enough precipitation in the winter, Bert, so we don't have to deal with that nonsense all summer. Right? Unless it's like 2 a.m, it can rain at like 2 a.m, right? But we don't need no rain on race day. We don't need that, okay? Now, with that said, let's jump into this. Let's talk about the 2022 season locally. We've spent the majority of the offseason, local offseason, talking national series, right? We've been talking a lot of late models, a lot of sprint cars, a lot of that. You've already been to Shawano. Dirt Kings already got their season underway. I'm going to start with you. And we touched on this a couple weeks ago, but, you know, I want your guys to get some love. We're going to talk Wissota racing as well. But let's start with Sean, okay? Who's the guy to beat? You know, and you can pick different classes. If you have somebody that you think in all the different classes, because that's your home turf, who's somebody that the fans over there really need to keep an eye on for 2022?
Well, I mean, in the late model, it gets a little difficult in the late model division as far as picking a champion because you don't know which driver. Basically, the champion is going to be a driver who races every week there. And you know that Nick Avalink is going to miss at least 1 week because he goes to the USA Nationals every year. And I don't know if he's going to Mississippi Thunder this weekend or not. I haven't heard anything, but he usually misses a few races. You know, last year Brett Swedberg missed some races. Ron Berna missed some races. If those three don't miss races, those would be those three and Troy Springborn would be the 4 drivers battling it out for the championship. But But
and of course, Springborn won the opener, right? So that counted for not only Dirt King's points, but I assume that's also a track point show, wasn't it?
I'm not sure, but I would assume so. Don't quote me on that though. And but last year Kyle Redant won the championship. He was, he raced every show, and so I would expect him to be a challenger to win the championship again. A driver to watch in the late model division. He looked pretty good last week. Is Lucas Pastel. Okay. He's been Lucas's dad Tom was on MJ McBride's pit crew for 30 years or more.
All right, there's your homer show.
No. And Lucas basically went from go-karts to late models. He didn't race anything else in between. So his learning curve's been a little bit longer than some of the other drivers because of that. But he's had some flashes last year, and he looked good opening weekend. So I would keep an eye on him.
Some say that could be an advantage, though, Bert, right? Because if you start out kind of the traditional way, I guess you can call it the traditional way of starting in like a beginner class and maybe going to a super stock or street stock or stock car and working your way up, they drive different, right? So maybe you learn some habits. They can just not have to relearn getting into.
Actually, I interviewed Nick Aveling quite a few times in the past, and he started racing in a IMCA modified, and I believe it was him that told me that basically nothing from the IMCA modified, transferred to the late model. Completely different driving style. So yeah, there is a point that maybe it is better off not to start in a division like that. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, and I think modifieds are a little closer to late models now than they used to be, but
could be. It's still this was back in the 90s.
You're right.
Back in the 90s when he was in the modified.
And timing's different. That's the biggest thing. How you set the car, timing, everything's different between a mod and a late stock car and a modified, and you name it. So that might be a good thing that he's doing that. So Lucas Pastel, the guy to keep an eye on over in Shawano. What else you got over there?
Well, we kind of talked about this last week a little bit. In the IMCA stock car division at Shawano, obviously you have to keep an eye on Travis Van Straten because he's won. He wins the championship every year because he doesn't DNF. I mean, he finishes every race and he's usually in the top 5 every race. So if you have one DNF, you're not going to beat him. If things go the way they normally do. I mean, last year actually there were probably 3 or 4 drivers who decided to race Shawano full time to start the season with the goal of dethroning him. And by mid-season, those drivers had a DNF, and then they stopped racing regularly at the track because there's no way to beat him.
Put a bullseye on his back is what you did. Okay? So
he already had
modified guys over at Shawano. Bert just said you can't beat them.
Stock car. I'm a stock car.
Stock car. Okay. So the cooler class anyway. Nothing against the mod guys. But
I didn't put a book.
Target. Bert said this guy's unbeatable. You can't do it. Don't even try.
He's got a bullseye on him already. He doesn't need me to put a bullseye on him.
So Bert's gonna give you $100 bill if you can knock him off.
But I mean, I would say the top contenders to challenge him would be Dan Machonsky and Trent Nolan. Those would be the 2 drivers I would think have probably the best chance to dethrone him. And IMCA modified division. I'm curious to see how Jaden Schmidt does this year. He's a rookie in the division this year. He's won numerous track championships in the sport mod division over the last several years. So he's moving up to the modified division. He started racing in the sport mod when he was 13 years old. And I talked to his dad last year for a story. And when Jaden started racing, he had to build pedal extenders on the race car because his feet wouldn't reach the pedals.
I know some people that probably need those, and it's not because they're really young. Just saying. So, Dirt Kings action, we touched on that a little bit. I mean, right now, the way it sits, yes, Troy Springborn, and no disrespect to him, he's leading the points. Is the smart money got to be on Nick Andrelink?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I said this in last week's show. If Nick follows the tour, Nick will win the championship. Take it to the bank.
He's tough to beat. I mean, if that luck can happen to anybody, right? I mean,
right.
I would love to see it close coming down to the wire.
Oh,
that's exciting.
Yes.
But yeah, until proven otherwise, he's the mark. In Eastern Wisconsin with late model racing, Nick Andrelink is here and everybody else is here. It just is what it is. And prove us wrong. So let's get over to the other side. Let's talk a little late models there first. We're going to get into some other classes as well. So if you're a fan of another class, bear with us. We'll get there, okay? But let's start with Wissota late models, right? Let's start there. Last year, rookie Cole Searing, who kind of a rookie, right? Because 2020 he ran quite a few shows, but they had COVID and they got to push the rookie. So he won the Rookie of the Year, but he was also the Wissota Late Model National Champion. This year, a few more races, maybe up in northern Minnesota with Greenbush for that Grand Forks area. Some of them guys maybe be able to cross the border and run Winnipeg on Thursdays up there. Who's your pick for the Wissota Late Model National Champ, and maybe who's some people to keep an eye
on? I mean, I don't know those drivers very well in Minnesota and the Dakotas.
Bert, we've been doing the show for 2 years. You're killing me.
Because I don't think the Wisconsin driver can win it because they just don't race enough Wissota races. So it's going to be somebody from the Dakotas or somebody in Minnesota. And I mean, I would say Shane would have a good chance to repeat it as champion.
Oh, Cole Searing, you mean?
Or Cole, yeah.
You're already thinking Shane Sabraski. He wins everything else. Okay, he wins everything else. But yeah, Cole would have a good shot. Couple guys I would say to keep an eye on. Right, there's 3 geographic regions that kind of have a distinct advantage in Wissota for a Wissota National Championship.
I mean, obviously, names that pop into my mind. I don't know if they race enough. Chad Becker would be one. It's evading me right now. So
yeah, I'll just touch on. So that region down there, the 2 that come to mind, which would be the South Dakota region, right? And there's been multiple national champions in the late model division from that area, right? And I would say the 2 on the list have to be the defending champ, Cole Searing, but also Chad Becker, because Becker races for points. He races 3 nights religiously. He races Aberdeen, he races Miller, and he races at Casino Speedway in Watertown. He gets plenty of shows in, plus they both hit a few specials here and there. Those 2 always in the hunt. Now, we head north, right? That region there also has produced national championships. And I'm talking that, I guess, I'll call it the NLRA region, which would be kind of the Grand Forks, Winnipeg, Greenbush, kind of that area, right? And, Ricky Weiss is one from there, right? Dustin Strand's one from there. So there's been others. But a guy to keep an eye on in that area as far as a national championship goes is Shane Edgington. He was up there.
That's the Shane I was thinking of.
That's the Shane you were thinking of. And he's tough. Now, Shane, if you can take the grater blade off the front of the car and get that thing to turn a little bit better, you're going to win a pile of races. He was pretty tight. A few times I watched him last year. I'm like, oh, my gosh, how is he driving that thing? But he's a heck of a wheel man, and he's got a lot of racing with that border opened up. I think that's going to help him as well. Edgington would be probably my pick up there, and I think he might be the only guy in that area that really races a lot of shows, and that's it. To win it, you got to race a lot of shows because you're going to have to win a lot of races. The other area that outside chance, right? They just haven't produced national champions in the late model would be the Twin Ports, Northern Minnesota, Iron Range, that area, because they have Grand Rapids, Superior, Hibbing, and Proctor, where they can run 3 nights a week almost every week, and then about half the time they can run a 4th night running in Grand Rapids on Thursday. Now, I would typically say a guy to keep an eye on there for a national title run would be Derek Vessel, because he races a lot, and he's up there. He's in the top 5. Has a little one on the way. So he's like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to race quite as much. We'll see, okay? We'll see how that works. But interesting thing, one thing that I'm going to keep an eye on this year, Bert, in the late model division, because Derek Vessel last year, ultra consistent. He was like top 3, 4, 5, like all year long at all the big shows. He had a hell of a year. Made the transition from a capital to an MB. Okay. Now, the smart money says if you're in a Wissota late model and you're running an MB, you're probably going to be better than you were in a capital. But drivers tend to have a certain feel that they like. He's used to that capital. I'm going to be interested to see how that transition works. Another guy that switched to MB was Dave Moss, right? Who invitational season last year, ultra impressive. I mean, he just about won the 100, chased down Jimmy Mars. He was really good. So MB, they got a couple top tier drivers that have made the move to their chassis. It'll be interesting to see. But another thing this year with late models, Bert, in the Wissota region is the rookie insurgents, right? There is a pile, and I don't get it. I mean, I just simply don't. I mean, everybody's like, oh, man, cars cost too much. And, like, the biggest growth is the top class. I'm like, I just don't get the math, right?
Yeah, I know. I've been watching Facebook, and then I see all these posts of, this guy's going to be a rookie in Wissota late model. This guy's going to be a rookie. And it's like, we get no rookies in the eastern side of the state because everybody stays IMCA. And it's like, you guys are lucky over there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm excited for late model racing in the area because there's a lot new. And there's 2 in particular, and no disrespect to any of the drivers moving into the late model division, because there's several, but 2 that I really have my eyes on this year is Kevin Burdick and Dave Flynn. 2 of I would put them, they were both in the top 3 to 5 in all of Wissota Superstock racing over the last couple of years here. I mean, phenomenal race car drivers. Dave Flynn in an XR1 Rocket, Kevin Burdick in an MB. Both of them are ready to go. The question I have for you, Bert, which one of them is going to win more races in 2022?
I'll go with Burdick.
I'm going to go with Burdick too. I think he's going to race a little bit more, but I tell you what, I mean, and this is the homer in me. I'm a super stock guy. Every single super stock guy that's transitioned into late models has been successful. Every one. They've all won races. Why? Because it's a momentum class, and they're used to that momentum deal. So both of them guys, I feel like, are going to make a really good transition over into the late model. I'm going to say Burdick too. I like both of them. Flynn's car is blue and yellow, so that's my color. I kind of like that. But I'm going to be really interested to watch that. Over and under combined feature win total on the year. The number's 5 combined. You're going to go over or under?
I'll go under just because it's so tough to win in that division.
It is. There's a lot of stout competition. My buddy Clint Larson, who I ran against for Supers, and he pitted for me, his claim to fame is his first night ever in a late model, he won at the Hibbing Raceway. First time. So, I'm just saying, there's some good drivers out there. There really is. But I don't know that the drivers are any better in the late models than they are in any other division. So I think once they get that learning curve down, a winner is a winner. The cream rises to the top. I expect them both to be up front pretty regularly. Anything else you want to touch on there?
Have you heard how many late model drivers are going to follow the Challenge Series?
Oh, that's a good question. I heard some positive stuff, right? Some central Minnesota guys especially. So last year there was 3 that ran the whole series, right? and I think Jake ran all but one, so 4 ran most of it, which was a huge disappointment. Huge. They got a pretty good show if Fergus opens, right? They got a pretty big show at Fergus. I guess I'd have to look at what the date is for that race, but that's coming up next week, isn't it? Yeah, that's next week.
It would be the 13th because that's the same night as the Dirt Kings at Red Cedar.
That is correct. So, and that was kind of the wild card, right? A lot of them guys that have followed the series have been from the Wisconsin region, but I'm hearing guys like Dave Moss and Bert's kind of mentioned that he might follow it. So I think there's going to be some drivers from Central Minnesota. I've heard some names, but until it happens, I don't want to throw it out there because I just don't know. But let's say this: the number last year was 3. Okay, do you think if they can get 10, do you think they can get 10 to follow the whole series this year?
If they got 10 drivers to follow the series, that would be very good for the series.
it would be huge. Now, I do know this. Rod, the interim, I guess, executive director of Wissota, that's kind of one of his. He's passionate about that challenge series. He's been making calls. It sounds he's optimistic. He seems to think it's going to be more than 10, and I'm like, wow. I hope you're right. I do. I hope you're right, but it'll be interesting to see, and a lot of times it kind of depends. Hopefully they have a good turnout for the opening weekend, right? And then that'll kind of tell the tale what happens moving forward from there. So we'll find out sooner rather than later. We're about a week away from that, but the Challenge Series, if you had to pick, it's hard to pick a winner because, Daryl Nelson won it last year, but I don't know that he's going to follow it again. I think he kind of did it because the family wanted him to. And, I talked to Jeffrey Massengill, and they're kind of looking at trying to do a little bit more open stuff. So if the schedule works, they'll do it. But they're looking, if there's a choice between open racing regionally versus Wissota, they're going to do some open stuff. And then you got Jake Rodetsky and John Canta, right? Which they're from Eau Claire, right? They live right in Elk Mountain in Eau Claire. They're right there. They're right by Menominee. So are they going to go to Dirt Kings? Are they going to go to Challenge Series? I don't know. Maybe one of them will rain out. I don't know. It's hard to. I think they'll have to leave that until after the first weekend to see who even shows up.
Right.
Well, another series, that NLRA series up in the northern part. I talked about that. They got a good following. They really put together a nice series there, good payouts, a pretty good group of cars follow that. Rookie Mike Gresseth last year, ultra impressive. I think he had 6-7 feature wins on the year, a pile of NLRA wins, and he edged out Shane Edgington to win the NLRA championship. Can he go back to back?
I'll say no.
You hear that, Mike Gresseth? BERTLEHMAN. That is Bert Lehman saying that absolutely not. Oh, go ahead.
Just to be different, I'll say no. It's always good to get some different winners.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's tough. Shane Edgerton's a guy that I think he expected a little bit more last year as far as wins. He ran good. He was on the top 5 a lot, but he just didn't translate them all the wins. It's going to be tough to beat him. And Dustin Strand's a guy, right, that could have a bounce back year. Boy, he struggled last year. If it could go wrong, it did go wrong for the 71. Does Strand bounce back this year in 2022?
Yeah, I think so. It's hard to keep good drivers down for multiple years. So I'm looking for a bounce back.
Yeah, I agree. That's that kind of partial to the number, that 71. He's fun to watch, too. So I'm really excited for racing. There's an NLRA show, of course, at Grand Rapids the end of June. But, should be some good late model racing regionally, and I'm excited for it. Let's jump into the mods, Bert. Shane, I know you're just going to say Shane Nebraska, right? But
no, TPO or are we going to avoid some controversy this year? That's the question.
Oof. Yeah, that was, I think that there's still a little bit of bad blood, not necessarily with Shane and TPO and everybody, but some people involved with the teams, they're still a little salty about that. And I get it. I mean, you kind of remember the ones you lost more than the ones you win, especially when you win that much, right? So that's going to be a hell of a battle. I'm looking at it right now. So for the national standings, it's going to be, there's a handful of drivers that I have in mind, Bert, that really can position themselves to win it all. Because quite honestly, you got USRA mods, right? You got IMCA, and you got Cedar Lake and Jim Falls that are non-sanctioned. There's really not a lot of mod racing. There's no Wissota mod racing in North Dakota. So if I had to pick from the respective regions, the people to keep an eye on that probably going to position themselves for a chance to win it, you got to go with the defending champ, Tyler Peterson.
Yeah.
I'm going to put him first because he's hungry. He's fun to watch. He's on the chip. They travel. And he's just kind of, you can tell he's got that fire, right? You can tell when, there's people out there that are good, but they kind of have that mindset of like, I'm like in kill mode. I'm going to win. That's where Tyler Peterson is right now. I think, and he improved drastic. He's been good over the past few years, but he really kind of found something the second half of last year. And I think he can carry that momentum. Of course, he won at Gateway to kind of cap off the season. That was cool. Tyler Peterson's going to be a guy to keep an eye on for sure. Shane Sobraski, perennial powerhouse. I mean, he races a lot, right? The West Metro team definitely, they like to chase points. Shane Sobraski will position himself to be in the conversation. Those two are a given. Now, two that I say that you got to keep an eye on. No pressure here, bud. Johnny Broking, okay?
That's who I was just thinking of.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Will he race enough, right? Because they race Rapids, they race Hibbing, they race the Advantage RV shows, they run every big show, everything that pays money, they're at, right? They're at all those shows. And they race Superior, I think, pretty much most of the time. But the one thing they did not do last year, Bert, because of work and he's trying to be a responsible adult. I don't know what the hell kind of racer that is, but I mean, whatever, I guess. But they didn't race a lot of Sundays. They did not race a lot of Sundays. And I feel if that 45J ran Sundays, that would automatically put them in the conversation and put them there. They'd be in the hunt. Will he race Sundays? It's yet to be seen. Tire issues and so on. But Johnny Broking's one. The one guy from Wisconsin, because I always say for national championships, Bert, Wisconsin's at a disadvantage.
Yep.
I mean, they only got 4 tracks, maybe Tomahawk's a 5th, maybe they added something, but they got nowhere to race. They got, so the one guy over there to keep an eye on, though, Rookie of the Year last year, he's hungry too, Brandon Copp. That kid is extremely talented, student of the game. Keep an eye on that 22. He will absolutely be in the mix for sure. And it's just a matter of if he can get he needs some marquee wins. It was his rookie year last year, but he needs a couple big wins to kind of get him up there. And the guy that really came on out west last year, Bert, Mike Stearns. When he got in that MB last year, he won a lot of races. Like he instantly went from running okay to bolted, just like that. And there was a time getting into invitational season where him and Johnny Broking over like a 6-week stretch were tied for the most Wissota wins and I think it was like a 6-week period. So Mike Stearns out in South Dakota, do not sleep on that 24S. He's a guy that could definitely be really tough to beat at Aberdeen and at Miller. The question is, will he make the weekly trip over to the Casino Speedway to put some pressure on the 1 TPO? Now, in the modified division, another thing that was supposed to start last weekend, Mother Nature killed it. The Advantage RV Mod Tour was supposed to get underway, and then it got canceled. Mother Nature just kind of took control of that one. Last year, Johnny Broking was the champ. Tyler Peterson was second. Don Ishins was running good, but he came down with COVID, had to miss. Who do you think would be do you think Johnny Broking can go back-to-back in the Advantage RV Mod Tour?
Yeah, I think so. He's got the experience of running the tour and what it takes to win. So I can see him winning it again.
And I will say this: I think the Advantage are the championship weekend for the Advantage RV Mod Tour last year catapulted Tyler Peterson to a national championship because he was leading going in and just came off the rails. He just had stuff happen, right? It was just a weekend where I guarantee he looked back and he's like, why couldn't it just rain that weekend? I mean, everything went wrong for the one TPO. And I think he used that as a little fuel and says, that I'm pissed about that. I'm winning this one. And he got after it and kind of rebounded. That's going to be fun. I mean, you see some quality drivers. Dave Kane usually runs some races. It'll be fun to see that. And one guy to keep an eye on, too, a driver back in the saddle, Jason Tennis. He's won a ton of races at the Viking Speedway over the big half mile in Alexandria and at Fergus Falls. After a couple years off, Bert, back in an MB Customs, he's back out in the modified. He might have a little something for Dusty Bitson, Brady Gertis, and all their rowdy friends over in that part of the country. So,
well, moving to your favorite division, can anybody knock off the champ, Shane Sabraski?
Here's the deal. I think it's going to be a runaway. I really do. I don't, and no disrespect, and I got a few people you need to keep an eye on. But he went up to Superior on Friday, and there was a couple drivers there that gave him fits, right? Kevin Burdick, Dave Flynn, both, they took some from him in Superior. They're gone. They're in late models, right? So you look at that, and Burdick is the one who's been nipping on his heels. He won it. I guess they didn't have a champion in 2020. But in 19, Kevin Burdick won it. 2020, they didn't have one. Sabraski won the most that year, and Shane won it last year. With Burdick and Flynn moving up, I just don't see anybody that can kind of keep pace with his wins. Now, with that said, the guy to keep an eye on, very hungry, class operation, they're hungry. He wants to race for a national title. Keep an eye on that 78K Dexton Cook. He's a good driver. He just didn't translate a lot of wins. And he had a lot of seconds, a lot of thirds. He was there on the podium a lot, got faster and faster, won the Wissota Race of Champions last year at the 100. I think he was on the podium in the A-main as well. But if there was one guy, looking at my notes here, and it's not because there isn't drivers good enough, it's just that most of them don't race enough, right? And to beat the 7A in the Superstock, I'm sorry, you're going to need 30 wins. If you don't have 30 feature wins, you're not in the conversation. It just ain't happening. So it is what it is. So it's going to come down. That's what cost Burdick last year. He had more wins, but he had a few of them were lower car count wins, and then lower car count wins hurt him. So it's going to come down to, I promise you, you're going to have 30 feature wins. The only person I'm looking at the notes here that I really think has a shot to make that happen, Dexton Cook. One guy that maybe could be a sleeper here, but he's going to have to be perfect, is Trevor Nelson. The 71 out in Aberdeen, he really only gets a couple nights, right? He runs Aberdeen, he runs Miller. It's really all he gets because Casino, Tom, good, I love you, man, but kind of pissing me off not having super stocks. Bullshit. You need to fix that over there. You got to get super stocks over there. I believe if Casino Speedway, Bert, if they had super stocks on Sundays, I'm telling you, it would be really tough to beat Trevor Nelson. He would be there. He would be in the conversation. He'd be for sure in the battle for the lead, but I just don't. I don't know if his work schedule and everything allows him to travel over to, say, Granite City on a Sunday night. I think that would be the closest track to him. That's a hike. He lives right by Aberdeen. So, I mean, you go from Aberdeen to there, that's got to be 3-4 hours on a Sunday night. That's tough. So I just don't see him doing that. Now, with that said, little interesting news here in the Superstocks, right? Because two guys that really kind of caught my attention over the last couple of years, Dan Nisulke, Brandon Dolan. Both of them phenomenal race car drivers. They're Trax Drop Supers. Southern Minnesota, no more super stock. So Chateau Speedway ran on Fridays. They dropped them about midway point of last year. Deer Creek, which, man, they've had some really good super stock drivers come out of that region. No more super stocks at Deer Creek. Ryan Wyoming, he sold his. He's like, I'm going to race. I want to race Deer Creek. He got a mod. It'll be interesting to see where those guys go. They're not going to be in a hunt for a national title, but they'll be worth watching. And the one other guy that I want to say that you really need to keep an eye on, if you're a fan watching big shows, right, for super stocks, Terrence Spacek was impressive last year. That kid right there, second generation driver, family legacy with the Spacek name. Terrence Spacek is definitely going to be a guy that's going to turn some heads, win some races this year in the 22.
All right. And Midwest Mods, you have to lead the way on this one because I'm not familiar at all with.
Well, I tell you, this was the toughest, right? Last year, this is probably the closest battle. The super stocks was tight until just right about the Wissota 100, and then Sobraski just drove away, right? And it just is what it is. But the Midwest Mods came down to the wire. There's so many of them. And I think this is probably the most competitive division in Wissota racing. Now, the Nightmare, Lucas Rodin, storybook season last year. Won the Rebel Midwest Mod Tour, won the national title, won a pile of features, won the Wissota 100. The conversations I've had with his dad says they're not planning to race that much this year. With fuel prices, work, and all that stuff going on, he just, doesn't know if he can justify racing that many regular nights. Sounds like he's still going to run all the specials. You know how things go. I mean, a person cracks off some wins. They look at the points. They're like, we're in the hunt again. Maybe we'll get after this deal. Who knows? But Rodin was incredibly impressive. And I'll keep in mind, he won down at Humboldt that 10 grand to win B-Mod show just a few weeks ago. So, I mean, he's clicking on all cylinders to start the season. So if he races for it, it'd be tough to beat. He'd be the guy to keep an eye on, and just like all West, right? We'll head out to Wyoming. The Liker boys out there, Tony Liker, Troy Liker, phenomenal race car drivers. They were not at Sheridan this past weekend. Haven't talked to them. I don't know what their plans are, but I can promise you, if they plan to race a bunch, they will for sure be in the conversation as well. Another guy I have, if he can stay focused enough, is Tyler Kitt. The best year he's ever had behind the wheel. I think he had 15, 16, somewhere in that neighborhood feature wins last year. The best year he had 3 track championships. He won at Rapids, Hibbing, and in Proctor. He was in the conversation at the end of the year. He could definitely be in the hunt for that deal. Doesn't sound like he's going to race Fridays. He said that's just going to be a family day. They're going to go drink some beer and tear some shit up on side-by-side. So it is what it is. I guess, hey, you got to have a little balance in life. Nothing against that. But Tyler Kittner, I'm telling you, with the 3 tracks that he races at, Bert, he is really, really good on those little bull rings. So Tyler Kittner could be there. Grunwald won down at Bristol, right? Brock Grunwald, he's a former national champ. He could be there. But my dark horse is last year's Rookie of the Year, Jake Smith. And the reason I'm going to go with Jake Smith, these other guys are all going to be in the hunt. But I'm telling you, Jake Smith, mark my words, is going to be there at the end because he's young, they're hungry, they're racing all over the place. They have the kind of means to do it. Like last week, hell, he drove all the way down to Wheatland, right? He drove to Humboldt. Jake Smith is a guy to keep an eye on. That is my dark horse pick for the Wissota Midwest Mod national title.
And then that leaves us with the street stock division as our last division to touch on.
Well, just like the super stocks, right? Had a little movement here. Parker Anderson flat out dominated the Wissota street stock scene in 2021. Won the Steffa Street Stock Tour, won the 100, won the Wissota national title. Bert, he was 17, turned 18 towards the end of the season. He was incredible. I mean, that was a season. He had a hell of a season. he has jumped up. He's going open wheel racing. Okay, so that leaves the door open. Now, a couple guys I'm going to talk about here is Justin Vogel. Okay, Justin Vogel had the most second place finishes of any driver in Wissota racing last year, all classes. So he was the king of the bridesmaid, and I've already seen him in a dress. Okay, I have seen him in a dress. He was we were on a cruise, right? And maybe there was some alcohol involved. There's something I cannot unsee, right? That he kind of did something for a sponsor a couple weeks back. If you go to his Facebook page, I had to see it, so you might have to put yourself through that torture as well. But if he can convert those seconds to wins, it's over. It's over. Except for Braden Brower. Braden Brower, another young up-and-comer, he was right in the conversation, and he was just a little shy. I think he got third, maybe fourth, in the top five in the national standings last year. Hungry. His dad was a good racer, Jeff Brower, another super stock guy from down in Deer Creek and down there in Lansing. But Braden Brower sounds like they're pumped and ready to go. I think they got a spare car. They got the means. They got what it takes, and he's very talented. The biggest thing is, Jeff's going to be pissed at me for saying this, but Jeff, for Braden's sake, take a deep breath, relax, let things kind of flow. Don't add that extra pressure because he's like me. He gets a little feisty when things don't go right. Don't do that. Your kid has a shot at a national title. Deep breath and let things play out. And if he does that, I'm telling you, it's going to be a big battle between Braden Brower and Justin Vogel for the Street Stock National title. And then, basically looking over here, right, is just a couple questions. So the start people are going to go, well, you're not talking about Piers and Hornets. Well, no, I'm not. Okay, I love the classes. What I want to see from them is growth, right? They're supposed to be the beginners classes. I'm not really a big fan of the beginners classes racing for national points. There's no disrespect to them, right? It's just that it should be focused on learning to race and having fun and taking that money part out of it. I want to see some growth in the beginner classes. And DJ Jarecki was they did an interview with him up in Ashland. Jump onto the ABC Raceway Facebook page, Ashland, Wisconsin, and he was talking about a car he built. And this cat won a bunch of races. Sounds like he only had a couple grand into a Hornet. So if you got kids, so on and so forth, that want to get into racing, don't go spend $50,000. Don't do that. If that's what you want to do, great. But you don't have to do that. Get them in a cheap class, see if they like it, right? And kind of get involved with racing. I want to see some growth in them starter classes. And then the other thing is, we got all them traveling series, right? And you got to balance series, specials, and weekly racing. I want your take, Bert. With things as they are, fuel prices up, tire shortage, parts shortage, cost of everything through the roof. If you were a racer, and I know you're not, but if you haven't, you've been a pit guy though, but if you were racing, would you put more focus on just staying at your local tracks and supporting racing, or traveling around and hitting specials? I mean, what would you do?
I mean, it's always fun to travel around and hit specials, but you also have to remember that chances are that the companies that are on the side of your car expect you to be at your local track, because that's what is going to help them the most, because they want fans in the stands to see their name on your car. And if you're not racing at your local track, then the fans aren't going to see the name on the car. So yeah, it is a tough balance from that aspect. And then you throw in the cost of, like you said, the cost of fuel and all of that. Racers are, they're really going to have to decide, stay local or travel a little bit more. I'm guessing that because of the fuel prices, that that may cause some of the lower dollar teams to stay home more than maybe they had hoped.
Right. And it's a balance, right? Because everybody likes different things, right? some drivers are like, hey, I just want to race my two local tracks or my one local track. And I'll be honest, we've heard people called, oh, they're cherry picked, that they never leave home. How can you get down on a guy for supporting his local tracks? It don't even make sense, right? I mean, if that's what he has fun doing, he likes local racing, he likes racing there, that's where his sponsors are, that's great. We got to have local racing. If local racing is not good, local weekly racing, if those numbers are down, special event numbers are down. It just is what it goes hand in hand. So it'll be interesting to see what the car counts look like on weekly events. I saw the numbers were pretty light out in Sheridan. They were lighter than I expected at Red Cedar. I think the weather probably played a part in that too, because
the weather was bad that day.
Yeah, we knew it was going to rain. So, but it'll be interesting to see what car counts do. And drivers, just be smart. I mean, don't go and I was one of them. I won national championships, but I'm telling you what, I had a lot of debt accrued from winning all them races and winning all the titles. And I know people that have spent way more money than I did. If you have the means, have fun, go do it. But don't kill yourself in the process, right? The other thing I'm going to touch on is weekly racing is here. We've been watching streaming platforms all year long. Dirt Race Central, the official streaming platform of Wissota Racing, www.watchdrc.tv. Ben and the crew do a fantastic job on Dirt Race Central. And it's a little bit different, Bert, right? Because a lot of them, you buy the monthly subscription and you watch them all live. And they don't do that because they're able to give more money back to the tracks doing it on a subscription basis, or on a pay-per-view basis, excuse me. But if you do get the subscription, you can watch the races the next day. So you can still watch them, or later on at night. Some of them, they have them on pretty early. But as a racer, I always enjoyed watching, because then I can kind of see what the car's doing. And, so check out Dirt Race Central. They'll have a lot of coverage, and check them out this year. So, Bert, let's jump into a blast to the past, brought to you by Impact Health Sharing. So, people, if you're paying for your own health care, right? If you're self-employed or whatever reason, if you got to pay out of pocket for your own health insurance and you're paying too much, if you're like frustrated with how much you're paying, or if you just don't have insurance and you're like, I'm just not going to get it because I just can't afford it, I might be able to help. Shoot me a message, shoot me a text. I can get you a quote. I'll get you some information. If it's a good fit for you, I'd be glad to help you out. We've been able to help people save thousands of dollars, like incredible. You can go to any network of doctors. There's no particular network. You can go anywhere in the whole country. So that's kind of a neat perk there as well. So hit me up, see if I can help you out on healthcare. But number 127, Bert, I don't think either one of us have a 127. There might be one. I don't know. If somebody knows a 127, let us know. But this has become a fun segment, right? I really like kind of this talking a little bit of old school stuff here. Number 27. I'm going to start with you. Who do you have number 27?
Well, I have two from Eastern Wisconsin. Well, specifically Shawano Speedway. The first, I'll go back to the 1990s, and Chad Ruffers raced. He was number 27, and he started racing in the IMC modified division in the 90s, and he was 16 years old when he started racing. And he's the son of Wayne Ruffers, who raced late models at Shawano Speedway back in the 70s, and I think into the early 1980s also. And if you remember when we were talking about number 21, we talked about Luke Ruffers, and Luke Ruffers would be Chad's younger brother.
Okay.
Yeah. So Chad raced IMC modifieds at Shawano, and then he turned to the dark side and started racing asphalt late models.
Well, we won't hold it again. If it's one lane, it's its own asphalt, right? So,
and the other driver I have is Justin Hurt. Justin Hurt is actually from my hometown, and he started racing. He actually started racing on the dark side on asphalt, and then converted to dirt. and he started racing at Shawano Speedway in the fast track late model division, and then moved up to the regular late model division when Shawano eliminated the fast track division.
Okay. Who else you got? You said you might have a couple more asphalt guys,
Well, I have 2 NASCAR drivers. I have to list one because he was my favorite NASCAR driver. And that the year that he won the championship in 1989, he was number 27, the Kodiak car, Rusty Wallace.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Rusty, a little bit more low key, right, than Kenny Wallace, right? But I tell you, he had a hell of a career for sure. He was fun to watch. Who else you got?
And the other one is, let's see if you can guess it. Old Milwaukee.
It's not Tim Richmond, is it?
Yes.
Okay. I was thinking, I'm thinking the 27 Tim Richmond, but I didn't remember him in the old Milwaukee car.
Yep.
Did he have a Folgers car too?
Yes, he also raced the Folgers car. But he was in an old Milwaukee car also.
Okay.
He was everybody said, I've read a book about Tim Richmond. I watched a documentary about him, and he was definitely the party guy in NASCAR. And unfortunately, that partying probably cost him his life, though, in the end, because he had HIV/AIDS and died from that. So, but he had quite a career in the short career that he did have.
Right. What happens at the truck stop stays at the truck stop, unless it's that. Yeah, fair enough. So I know you have one from Western Wisconsin, but we'll save him for just a minute. So the first one I'm going to start with is a buddy of mine. Lost his life here just recently. Jim Inman, good friends with, of course, his nephew Lauren Inman. And Jim Inman ran a modified for many years over in Proctor, Superior. Not really the guy that won a lot of races, but the guy that I can remember that loved being there. And he was like everybody's friend, right? I mean, I remember him in the back straightaway at the Proctor Speedway, and I'd be out there on the parade lap, and he'd be giving me thumbs up in the back straightaway. And every once in a while, if he was back there, he gave me signals a couple of times. But Jim Inman, a guy that, he just been around the sport. The Inman family at the Proctor Speedway, they've been around for a very, very long time. And Jim's a guy that's going to be very, very missed because he had a lot of friends at the racetrack. Another one here, super stock guy, talked about his brother last week, and now he's in a modified. I think he's got an MB, not positive. But I ran against him in the supers, Superman Steve Hallquist. And he's from over, I think, Chippewa Falls, Eau Claire area. But he ran well. Nothing against Rick, but I remember Steve maybe winning a couple more races than him. Parked next to him multiple times. And when I make the trip down to like Race Lake or in that area, a lot of times I park next to him, and his whole family's super nice. And I really enjoyed racing with him. Just a really stand-up guy. Another guy here, this is an interesting one. Super stock guy, I think he ran Midwest Mods, and we talked about it, right? The top street stock driver in Wissota racing last year was who? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Parker Anderson. I'm going to quiz you weekly to get this into your head. But his dad, right? So Parker's a chip off the old block. His dad, Scott Anderson, he was extremely talented. He won a lot of races himself. Super stock, I think he had a stint in a Midwest Mod as well, but I ran against him in my very early years in a Wissota super stock, and I tell you what, he was a really, really good wheelman. Another guy, so on Facebook, there's some pretty cool pages out there, and one of them, if you're from northern Minnesota, that area, Vintage Iron Range Dirt Track Racing, a buddy of mine, Mark Tremberth, put that together. Of course, he built the turbine chassis. And I was looking, I just clicked 27. I was kind of looking to see if I could remember a couple. One that stuck out, Bruce Grierson. So northern people from the Hibbing area would remember this name. Honestly, I had no idea, Bert, that he raced a number 27. Had no clue. I remember him in the Lavender Deuce. He ran the number 2 in the 6-cylinder division. He won the 4th annual Labor Day Shootout in 1982 in the 6 cylinders. But prior to that, he had a couple years in the Super Stocks as 27. And when the Super Stocks faded, they went away at one point because they transitioned to late models. He converted that car to a 6 cylinder and made it number 2. So that's kind of cool. There's a lot of history on that page. Jump on there. There's really cool stuff. Now, a fan of the show, John Borkowski, he sent me a couple. And one of them I remember, one I did not know anything about. We'll start with that guy. But 1991, he has a picture of a guy by the name of Al Bjornson. And I don't know anything about this guy. It sounds like the picture was maybe up in Estevan, Saskatchewan, or he was from there. If anybody knows anything about this guy, the picture's right here. Post it in the comments. His question was, is he related to Mike Bjornson, right? The 26 we talked about. I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know that for sure. If somebody else knows that, let us know. It'd be kind of cool to hear that history. Another one of my favorite tracks growing up, Bert, Riverview Raceways up in Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada. My favorite class is what?
4 cylinders.
4 cylinders. Yeah.
Super stocks.
Yeah, and the Super Stocks up there, they were sponsored by, I think, Diamond Bolson, Diamond Beer or whatever, but they call them the Diamond class is what they were. That was their Super Stocks. And a gentleman by the name of Frank Rand, he ran the number 27 up there, and I got a couple cool pictures here of him, 1980, 81 in that era. And one thing, Bert, that always stuck out to me, if you go back, I think there's a page called 100 Years of Riverview Raceway or Thunder Bay History or something like that. If you go on Facebook, you'll find it, or hit me up. I can put the link in here. But there's a lot of history. You see them old pictures, and they got that mountain in the back of all the cars at Riverview. Man, that brings back memories, right? And I'm so pumped for that racing is back in Thunder Bay this year, and it's about time because there's so much history up there. And then we're gonna save who I would have to say will save the best for last, right? Because for me, if you think if somebody says if you're playing the numbers game, have you ever done this, Bert? Where let's play the numbers game. We start at 0 and we go to 100, and you just got to name a driver as quick as you can. Or if you're watching the show, you've probably done it yourself. I used to kick ass.
I played that game in the back of a race hauler traveling home from a racetrack.
Well, yeah, we didn't have cell phones and all that to be chatting on and all that, so we had to do something, right? And we used to play that game all the time. And if we were playing that game and number 27 came up, this would be the guy. Would he be your guy too?
Yeah, probably.
And who is that?
Jerry Rodetsky.
You got any memories of Jerry Rodetsky? I'll talk a little bit about Jerry because I've known Jerry for quite a while. But you know what sticks out to you when you hear the name Jerry Rodetsky?
Well, the first thing that sticks out to me is his cars were always immaculate. I mean, they were clean. The tin was straight. There were hardly any scuff marks on it at all. And then just racing memories. I think he won the Wissota 100 the first year that I ever attended a Wissota 100. And then also I remember MJ went and raced at Marshfield one year because Marshfield always held a special the weekend after Labor Day. And I think Rodetsky lapped the entire field except for maybe 1 or 2 cars. I mean, he was just on a rail.
What? Now, I always remember him in the red car. Do you remember that car he had when it came out? It was red, but it was reflective red, like almost like a stop sign, reflective red. Oh, the camera guys were pissed because that car, they couldn't get a picture of it, but the whole car blew. Do you remember that car?
I don't know if I remember that car. I do remember seeing pictures. I believe he had a white car with a blue number, which was totally different than what his normal scheme is.
Okay. So Jerry was the first ever Wissota late model national champion. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yep, 1985 Wissota late model national champion. The late models was Jerry Rodetsky. The modifieds was Pat Willis. So interesting stuff there. Rodetsky. Now, he actually, I remember in 2002, and I was at Cedar Lake at the time, and he came from the B main, and he won the Wissota 100 from the B. And,
wow.
And that's tough. I mean, it's tough in any class, but a late model, that's really tough. I mean, he was incredibly bolted. And then you talk about the legacy that's left, right? Jake Rodetsky's won countless races. I think he's a Challenge Series champion at one point. And then, of course, Jesse Rodetsky, the 207, he's racing in a super stock and had the best year he's ever had behind the wheel. He won a lot of races last year, and he's ready to go for this year as well. And then, of course, Jerry owns Champ Pans, right? JR Manufacturing, Champ Pans. They used to sponsor me. They sponsored countless drivers, series, and sponsored Wissota. So not only has he succeeded at a high level, his kids have succeeded, so he's got the legacy, and then he built a business around racing, and he's given back to the sport. So, man, you're right. His stuff was top-notch, a top-notch guy, a top-notch program, and a guy that, I tell you, a lot of history with them 27 cars over, especially at the Red Cedar Speedway. So what do you say we jump on to the next segment here, Bert, unless you got anything else you want to touch on as far as that goes?
Well, I just remembered one other driver from Eastern Wisconsin that was number 27. He doesn't race anymore, but he raced IMCA Modifieds, Kyle Lenz, and he was called the Crocodile because he had a crocodile as part of his graphic scheme on the side of his race car. So I just thought of that one right now.
Nice. Well, let's jump into the next segment, and that's kind of we'll do the recap here from this past week's national scene. Of course, brought to you by my friend Brad Carson and farmers. We're into planting season, right? Weather's finally getting by. You're going to be able to get out in the fields. If you're dealing with problems like high pH soils, tight, heavy soils, maybe some light, sandy soils and cool ground temps when planting, Brad and the guys have the tools that address those issues. Get a hold of them. Their number's right here. Hit me up. I can get it to you. It's not too late to get those products for planting, and they're liquid products. They're easy to use. I don't know anything about that, but that's if you understand farming, you do, right? And they're made right here in the USA, which that is important to the farming community for sure. And they have a stout foliar sold out at the Fargo warehouse 5 times last year. And farmers, the best part is no price change like other fertilizers. Feed your crop over the top with products from Brad Carson. So this past weekend, really a couple big events, right? Bristol, we'll talk about second. But the Castrol Flow Racing Night in America got their season underway. They had a doubleheader. They raced Tuesday this past week at Eldora. They ran Wednesday at Brownstown. What stuck out to you from those 2 events?
Well, Eldora, it seemed like more than the racing itself the talk was about the track and how it was rough, and which you normally don't see at Eldora, but normally we don't watch races at the end of April from Eldora either. So and it's especially with this spring. So it is what it is. I mean, you're going to get rough tracks. I think everybody's just happy that there's some racing going on.
Yeah, and that the drivers kind of knew that going in. I mean, and that's where a lot of tracks regionally are talking. It's like, maybe we got to push it back a week because we don't want a cowboy up deal. And it is what it is. I mean, you can't beat Mother Nature. You know what stuck out to me? Car counts. 49 late models at Eldora, 47 at Brownstown. That's pretty high, right? So they had, yeah. I mean, I get it. It's a midweek show, right? No competition. But there's been other stuff going on that have not seen car counts like that, not even close. Yeah. So
and a high car count at Eldora didn't necessarily surprise me. Although I don't know how much they're going to learn because of the track conditions. But with the million coming up in June, some drivers want to get some more laps and in preparation for the million.
Yeah, and a couple guys that are kind of, I would say not favorites, but definitely you expect them to be in a conversation. would be Fergie and Dale McDowell, right? They're both good. Neither one of them were at Eldora this trip. Probably smart. They probably looked at it and said, I'm not sure their reasoning, but they probably made the right call.
Especially for McDowell, because he likes the low side, and you didn't want to race the low side.
Yeah, he likes it smooth as a baby ass. He wants that black, and it was not like that. Kyle Larson, of course, his win at Eldora, Bert, and I found this interesting. I don't have all the classes. Maybe somebody does. Somebody posted on Facebook that he's won in every single division he's raced at Eldora. So I think USAC sprints on NASCAR. They ran NASCAR trucks there. I think he won one of the NASCAR deals he won at Eldora. He won in obviously the World of Outlaw Sprint Cars, late models. So Kyle Larson, really tough to beat at Eldora. But I also saw that he's not going to the million because a friend of his has a wedding, and I think Bobby Pierce maybe commented.
Yeah, it was Bobby Pierce.
Yeah, so they're all pretty happy to see Kyle Larson.
Yeah. Bobby Pierce posted, everybody should thank Kyle Larson's friend for getting married.
Yeah, exactly. So he's probably, all the drivers are going, that dude needs to mind his P's and Q's so the wedding happens and doesn't get canceled, because we don't want Kyle Larson at the million. JD second, Overton third. Brownstown, JD back in victory lane. He's been red hot as of late. Pierce second, Marlar third. Another thing that stuck out to me from this event, Bert, the racing was, it was okay. It was rough the first night. Second night was okay. It wasn't fantastic. Brownstown was nothing too exciting. But let me ask you this, right? We've watched a lot of streaming, probably too much, right? We watched a lot of streaming. Some streaming platforms, it's like, okay, they got the race and they got the you can hear the announcer. These are productions, right? This ain't just a regular race. They go back to the studio. It's an actual production. I would say the closest thing to a NASCAR production, right, in dirt racing.
I would agree, and I think that's their intention. They want to stand out as the bar, setting the bar for streaming dirt races.
Yeah, and what is your thoughts? As far as quality, entertainment value, and is it good or bad for the sport?
Well, we've talked a lot about whether it's good or bad. As far as for streaming, it is definitely good for streaming to have high production. What I like, because this is one thing that I've said that you can't get from streaming versus attending in person is, a lot of times they'll show the leader, but the real action is taking place, for, fifth and sixth place, they're jockeying back and forth. And, but Flow, sometimes they'll do the side-by-side shot. So they show two different shots at the same time.
At least at them events, right? Not at all Flow events.
Right. Yeah, correct. At these events, they do the side-by-side. But I'm sure they have a lot more cameras, and, they go more all out for these events than, the other races that are shown on Flow or streamed on other places.
Yeah, I agree, and I love it. I think it's fantastic. I was talking to somebody. I got the football stuff on here, right? I'd rather watch a game on TV than be at the game because I can hear all the commentary and all that. And they have that. They got that angle, and it's changing the game. And most streaming platforms, financially, there's just no way they can do that. It's just not possible. They got a little bit more money to play with there, and maybe changing the game a little bit. So if you haven't seen that, and chances are if you're watching our show, you either have Flow or have seen it. But if you haven't, jump on there and kind of check it out, because it is really, really good the way they produce that whole deal. One side note, and I got this from Jeff. We'll touch more on it next week, but not this coming weekend, but next weekend, right? They got that 4-night swing in Illinois. They got 2 more Castro Flow Night in America races, and then they got one at Farmer City, one at Fairbury. They also have 4 nights at Charlotte. So we'll talk about that more next week with something to think about. Now you're going to have XR going head to head with the Flow group to see who's going to have a better turnout. It'll be interesting to see. We'll touch more on that next week. Let's make the shift over to Bristol because they had the World of Outlaws in, right? World of Outlaw late models and the World of Outlaw sprint cars final dirt race of the year at the Bristol Motor Speedway. They had 2 nights, both of them in action. And, Bert, what stuck out to me, car counts. Brutal. As good as the car counts were at the flow races, they didn't even have enough for a B main in the late models or in the sprint cars. What's your thoughts on that? 25,000 to win, right? A normal woo race is what, 10 or 12? 12, I think it is. And for the sprints.
And the Lucas shows got rained out. So if those drivers really wanted to go, they could have.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, like I've said on several of these shows, I just think the novelty of Bristol has worn off already for late model racing. I mean, actually, I think the racing was a little bit better. The late model racing was a little bit better this past weekend than it was for the XR events. And I don't know if that has something to do with the sprint cars also being on the show, with their big tires widening the track and making the track smoother, a bigger area of the track smoother. I don't know. It just seemed like the late models were able to race side by side a little bit more, and there seemed like there was a little bit more passing, but it's still not real exciting racing. I'm sorry. I mean, I love dirt racing. I love late models, but it's just not real exciting at Bristol.
Well, who made it exciting, right, was Kyle Larson, right? Yeah. So we'll talk about that. So night number 1, he's running double duty, only driver to go double duty. And, I'll come back to a couple other thoughts here, but he was late to staging, okay? And I get it. I get why you have to be there at a certain time, because you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Fans don't want to sit there all night waiting for it. I get it, right? But it sounds like there was some miscommunication, and we're talking about a series, Bert, that's quite honestly dying. They're struggling. World of Outlaw Late Model Series is struggling. And then let's talk about a series that I can literally run right over you, right? I can yard sail you and spin you out and keep going. I get my spot back. But God forbid I'm late to staging. They're going to put you all the way to the back. He's supposed to start front row, and they made him start dead last. That's just unbelievable. It's just stupid, right? So, and especially when it sounds like there was some miscommunication, he was not happy. So after that all said and done, so if in case you didn't see it, right, and I know some of you probably haven't, he came from dead last to second, probably was going to win the race, blew a tire, hit the fence, ended up 8th on the last lap. So we're talking about the racing wasn't good. Well, it depends who's driving, because he made it good. He was he was phenomenal. Last to second was impressive. Now, of course, Jonathan Davenport parked at Victory Lane, and second was Ricky Weiss. Ricky Weiss been running pretty good over at Bristol. But after the race, Bert, they went down to Kyle Larson, and they literally put a mic in his face right away. Now, keep in mind, not only was he probably mad about getting put to the back, but he blew a tire, hit the fence, and went from second to 8th. So he's a competitive guy. He's already mad. He made the comment that, I'm going to paraphrase this because I don't have the exact, you can probably look it up and find it all over YouTube. But he's like, I had shit to do. And it's no wonder that top tier teams like Mark Richards Racing are dropping off the World of Outlaw Tour. And a lot of them have in recent years. They've lost a lot of top tier drivers. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, they stuck a microphone in his face, right after the race. But I mean, that's what viewers want to see. They want to see stuff like that. And I mean,
he erupted.
I mean, he was speaking his mind, and I see where he's coming from. I mean, I don't think you can I mean, you have to follow rules, but when you have a driver who's doing double duty, you have to make sure that those rules allow for him to do double duty. And if they don't allow for him to do double duty, then you need to adjust the rules a little bit, not for him, but for anybody who's doing double duty.
And what's crazy, right? If you watch the race, when the cars pulled out on the track, he wasn't late getting out on the track. It's not like they had to wait for him. He was late to staging. So I mean, I get it. If you're late and they've got to do parade laps and they're like, this dude ain't coming out, like, okay, put him to the back. We ain't holding the show up for you. But he's late to staging. I mean, come on. I mean, now how much of it do you think was frustration over that versus frustration over what happened on the last lap and when you saw that emotion?
Yeah, I mean, if he would have won the race, I mean, it wouldn't even have been brought up. I don't think. I mean, he would have been, well, maybe he would have said something like, yeah, they put me to the back, but that didn't stop me, whatever. But yeah, I mean, even if he would have still finished second, his comments probably would have been different. But the fact that they put him in the back, he charged a second and probably had a good shot at taking the lead, and then he blew a tire and hit the wall on the last lap and he dropped to eighth. Yeah, that changed his mindset a little bit.
Yeah, his demeanor changed just a little bit. Now, the beginning of the night, I didn't catch this until I saw a post on Facebook. So Kyle Hammer, I don't have it in front of me, the numbers. You can maybe look it up where he finished. But Kyle Hammer is a rookie in the World of Outlaw late model division and actually had the best weekend of the World of Outlaw drivers. Where did he finish night one, night two? Do you have that?
I know I don't have that.
Okay, so I'll maybe look that up here as we're talking. But he had the best weekend. But they brought two cars to the track, as many teams do, right? Especially when you're going to a double header. His dad, Don Hammer, has raced late models in the past. He's promoted in the past. He owns a whole operation. And because their car count was so down, right? No B mains, he's like, screw it. I'm gonna hop in one, I'll drive one. I'll drive the other car. It sounds like a good idea. I mean, if you're there already and there's no B main, you're in the show, shit, you might as well race both because you're gonna get start money for both cars, right? Worst case scenario. Not worst case scenario. He fenced it on the time trials hard. Didn't completely junk the car, but bad enough they had to bring it back to Longhorn, right? So the car's there. But what happened is the safety crew for Bristol, I don't know if they get snail mail or like what. I mean, it took them forever, Bert, forever to get to that car. And when you hit the wall at Bristol, you hit the wall, right? I mean, it's not like you're hitting the wall on a little quarter-mile bull ring. You hit the wall. And I've seen this at multiple Bristol events, right, where it's like, what the hell are these people doing? They're safe for a track that big, Bristol Motor Speedway. I'm going to give them clowns a donkey award for like probably the worst freaking safety crew that I've seen. It's literally beyond words. It's inexcusable to take that long to get to a driver that hit the wall. He got kind of knocked silly, and that could have been really bad. What's your thoughts? I mean, are the tracks in your area? I mean, have you seen some tracks that are really good on safety, really bad on safety? What's your expectations when you're at a racetrack?
I mean, your expectation is that they're going to get there, as quick as possible. But, it's surprising that this happened because you would think that, a track that hosts NASCAR races, would be on top of things.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know who's I don't know if that's a track deal or, I mean, is it World of Outlaws safety crew that follows them or I don't know.
Typically not, because I don't think World of Outlaws has that many people on staff. Okay. I don't know for sure. He made the comment in his post that he feels that it's not a reflection of World of Outlaws. It's more of a reflection of Bristol Motor Speedway. Fortunately, Don's okay. But I mean, he was knocked silly. I mean, it could have been really bad. Night number 2 in the late models, Team Canada, baby. About freaking time. Ricky Weiss, he's been good at Bristol. He's been good. In fact, he had a shot to win that Bristol Dirt Nationals and cut a tire. He was for sure could have got second in that deal. He ran really good at that deal. One spot better than night number 1. He got second night 1, first on night 2. How about Ricky Weiss? Can he carry that momentum further into the season, or you know what a lot of times you hit one track wonder, right? You hear that, and he was good on another big track. Do you think that Ricky Weiss can translate his success there throughout the rest of the season on a multitude of racing surfaces and track sizes, or do you think this is just something because it was Bristol and he had a big motor, or what do you think?
Well, I mean, he's definitely found some sort of a secret at Bristol because he runs very well there. But I think he's been running. I don't have his results in front of me, but I think he's been running well at other tracks also. I think he's going to have a much better year than he had last year.
Yeah,
by far.
I hope so. And he looked really good there. It's nice to see him get a $25,000 payday. Not sure what it was for second, but a hell of a good weekend for Ricky Weiss. Congratulations to him. Interesting enough, Bert, the research that I've seen, my sources say that he's not racing this coming weekend, right?
That's what I've heard also.
I don't get it.
He's not racing this weekend, and I heard Madden's not racing this weekend. So I don't know.
I think they're just kind of getting their stuff ready for that 4-night swing down at Charlotte.
Could be, but I mean, the surprising thing with Madden is he did well at Mississippi Thunder last year, so that surprised me a little bit.
To win,
right.
I don't understand. I mean, it is a lot of traveling for them to come all the way up and then all the way back down. If they were coming up and then staying for that Illini swing, they'd probably both be coming, right? Mm-hmm. But they're going all the way back down to Charlotte, so that probably plays a factor as well. Into the sprint car action, night number 1, I'll be honest with you, and I like sprint cars. It was a snoozer. I mean, Logan Schuchart, his first win in quite a while. Aaron Reitzel second. Craig Kinzer, a guy that we never talked about him on the podium, right? I mean, talk about Steve Kinzer, but not Craig Kinzer. So he rounded out the top 3. Night number 2, though, Bert, was phenomenal, especially the end. They went into overtime. And Spencer Baston and Kyle Larson started on the front row. And Spencer Baston kind of pisses me off because I was trying to make it 4 in a row for my lock of the week. And he went ahead and screwed that deal all up, right? But he got the lead. Looked really good. He's been fast all year. Just one of them young guns out there. Yellow comes out. Literally, they're coming for the checkered flag, right?
They're coming out of 4.
and unbelievable. What's your thoughts on that? When they're already there for the checker?
Well, in their defense, the slow car was on the front stretch, so the slow car was right in front of them. But yeah, I mean, they were a quarter of a lap away from finishing that race, so they didn't finish the race. So then they have to race an extra lap.
And yeah, because some of them go green checkered, which that's really weird. They at least went green white checkered. And Kyle Larson, he threw everything at him with the kitchen sink. I mean, he chucked a slider and very respectful because he could have come up and took it away. But he hit he left him a lane. And Spencer Baston, I tell you what, he was carrying around some marbles, and he drove back on him on the high side, and he earned that one. Hats off to the kid. It was a hell of a finish, and good to see another up-and-comer, successful in the World of Outlaw realm. So that's it as far as Bristol and the Castro Flow Racing Night in America. Let's get into a little who's hot and who's not, brought to you by Blue Line Brews. So if you drink coffee, right, if some people get out of bed in the morning and they got all kinds of energy, Okay, everybody else has to have some caffeine, right? So if you're the one that needs caffeine, go to bluelinebrews.com. Lots of different blends. And the best part is a portion of the proceeds goes to families of injured and fallen officers. So they give back to the people that really help us out in our communities. So bluelinebrews.com. Bert, reluctantly, I'm going to let you go first.
Well, I have 2 drivers listed, so if you want to go first,
both of them the same.
Okay. Well, I have Ricky Weiss and Superman.
Ricky Weiss and Superman. Okay, so I'll let you touch on both, and I'll fill in any thoughts I might have. So that's who I have. I mean, Ricky Weiss. Let's face it, he's Bristol's been really good. He had the best weekend he's had all year, and Davenport's been red hot. What do you got on those two, Bert?
Well, and I mean, we've put Weiss in the not hot category a lot on the show, so we got to put him in the hot category when he's performing well, and he definitely had a good weekend. I mean, you can make a case that he should have won both of those races, and
he led until there couldn't have been 3-4 laps left, right? And, and then Davenport, they found something up top, and him and Larson both got by him. And then, of course, he got back by Larson when he cut the tire. But Ricky qualifying good. Big power underneath the hood. It sounds like he's got a really, really healthy Vic Hill underneath there. And that's what it takes. I mean, you got to qualify good to put yourself in position. So carry on.
And regarding Superman, I mean, he got into victory lane in the flow race and got into victory lane again. And, we've talked about how it's taken him so long to get his first win of the year. And now he's starting to stack them up. And, is he getting, with all the big money races coming up, is he getting on a hot streak?
Fear the lenses, baby. I don't know. Maybe, is he getting special glasses from Dr. Troy Powers? I'm not sure. He's a late model guy. Maybe he's got something. DrTroyPowers.com. I'm not sure if that's where he got his glasses, but check it out, right? But I'm thinking Jonathan Davenport, it's like, wild thing. You make my heart sing. Major League when he gets the glasses. Because he was like winless, not really running all that good. He gets a new pair of lenses, gets glasses. He's wearing glasses now. And literally his last 5 races, first, second. Fear the glasses. Fear the glasses. I don't know if they're special glasses. I'm not sure what's going on there, but both of those two red hot. Jonathan Davenport, he's really on fire. And it'll be interesting to see what he can do up at Mississippi Thunder. So, who's not?
I'm going a different route on this one, and she's gotten this award in the past, but I'm giving it to her again, and that's Mother Nature.
Okay. That is fair enough. Now, be nice, right? Because it looks like she's trying to cooperate, so don't piss her off anymore. I'm going to go with Ricky Thornton Jr., right? I got to be honest. I expected more from him. I did, right? And 32 shows, Bert, 1 win. How many podiums do you think he has in 32 shows?
One.
Let me ask you this. Pause there. Hold that thought. He has 2 nights, not counting provisionals, because there's been some night where he had to take a provisional getting, okay? But not counting the ones where he wasn't qualified to get a provisional, he had 2 nights where he just didn't make the feature, okay? Might have been issues, probably some kind of an issue. So he has 2 nights out of 32 where he didn't even qualify. How many nights do you think he was on the podium in 32 shows?
1.
2. So February 14th was his last one. After winning the Dirt Track World Championship last year, he was still a slump most of the, kind of that late part of last year, and that kind of resurged him a little bit. Did you expect more? I mean, from Ricky Thornton Jr. this year? I mean, are you surprised that he's only got 2 podiums and 32 tries? Yes,
I'm surprised that he only has 2 podiums. I mean, the wins necessarily don't surprise me because, I mean, it's just difficult to win in that level of late model racing. But only 2 podium finishes. I would expect more from him.
And part of it's that he's had some bad luck in there too, but can he turn it around? Is that a guy there? We're into May, over and under in the month of May. 3 podiums.
I'll go the under.
And you're a hater. Because he's a mod guy. I get it. Kind of against modified.
I like Ricky. I've interviewed him several times when he raced at 141.
Yeah, he's got to turn it around.
He's a good interview, and he'll tell he doesn't mince words. I mean, he'll tell you what he's feeling.
Right. It'll be interesting to see. I'm going to go over. I think he's going to bounce back, but it'll be interesting to see. So let's jump into the sure bet of the week. And of course, my sure bet of the week, as always, is J. Schmidt Real Estate over in Watertown, South Dakota. Over 20 years in business, huge racing family. His dad, his son, himself, been around the racing community at the Casino Speedway for decades now. And, the fact is, if you need commercial, residential, land, any kind of real estate transactions, my lock of the week, Real Estate by J. Schmidt over in Watertown, South Dakota. And Bert, do you want me to go first on this one, or do you want to go first?
You can go first.
Because I'm kind of scared that you might take my guy. I'm sick of you taking my person.
Okay.
What classes you got in?
A late model?
Okay, you can go first.
Okay. Superman cashes in at the Dairyland and wins the $50,000.
Well, you're going for 3 in a row, right? Because you had B-Shep winning one 2 weeks ago. Last week you had JD winning one of the Castrol races. He did. So which one? 50 grand? You have him winning the Saturday event at the Dairyland Showdown?
I actually picked him for Friday and Saturday, but I'm saying
Friday and Saturday. Okay. Boy, I tell you what, if somebody needs to break his glasses. Okay, just break his glasses, or just go up and smudge them like that, or whatever you got to do. Okay, my sure bet of the week, Dustin Sorensen. This kid is a stud. He's been phenomenal. In 2021, I think this is correct based on my race pass. I think he had 17 wins in 2021, and he was the 2021 USRA Modified National Champion. Okay, USRA, USMTS, same rules, right? He's the current USMTS point leader, and so far this year, in 4 nights, he's got a first, a third, a fourth, and an 8th. He's won a lot of races at Mississippi Thunder. My lock of the week is Dustin Sorensen is going to win at least 1, but don't be surprised if he wins more than 1 this weekend down at the Mississippi Thunder Speedway. So, Bert, let's jump into the last lap. Brought to you by Zulie's Race Engines. And I said it last week. I say it every week. If you can't beat them, join them. Zulie's Race Engines already in victory lane. 1 week into racing, and they got her done. First win of the year, of course, went to Zulie's Race Engines. Jeff Nowak getting it done. But I tell you what, if you're looking for a change, you're looking for power, you're looking to win, look no further. Zulie's Race Engine is your go-to. So I want to give a couple shout-outs here, Bert. The first shout-out I want to give is to my buddy, Al Schmidt, which is J. Schmidt Real Estate. That's his dad, okay? So we've been talking about the One to Go Show challenge, get out and promote racing, right? They did that. Jay went with Dad, and they went over to Florence Grade School in South Dakota for a career day. I got a picture here. It was super cool. K through 5. They showed them all the safety gear. They kind of walked through a history of Schmidt racing and pictures with the cars, and drivers are like, I want tear-offs. He's like, they're $1 a piece. We'll do drawings for tear-offs. I'm not giving away 200 tear-offs, right? And they did a question and answer section. They had hero cards there. One class, 16 of the 40 kids in the one class have been to a race. I thought that was pretty cool. And multiple people there have family members that are racers. So tip of the cap right there. Al Schmidt, good job in a great way. Todd Good, get this segment to Todd Good. Todd Good, you get his butt in for free this next week into the Casino Speedway because he's out there promoting the sport. He deserves some kudos. Another guy I want to give a little shout out to here is my buddy Jeff Wood up in Chisholm, Minnesota. Of course, Puka knows Jeff too. He's one of our hometown guys. But every single year for the past, and it feels like it's been 20 years, I don't exactly know how long, he's sponsored by the Sawmill Bar and Grill over in Virginia. And they put together a car show for the drivers that race at the Hibbing Raceway. And they did that again this year. And he continues to do that. You know, you don't see some tracks. I've seen tracks, you know, put this stuff together. But here's two drivers that just took it upon themselves to go make something happen to promote the sport. So great job to both of those guys. Anything in your neck of the woods here on the last lap, Bert? I got a few more things here.
No, not really. Everything got washed out last weekend. So but there's several tracks that are set to open this coming weekend. So hopefully we get that good weather that's expected.
Right. A little bit of breaking news over in our neck of the woods, Hibbing in Grand Rapids. We talk about Johnny Broking, his dad Bob Broking races as well. They purchased CNS Race Supply from Steve Vessel. So they are now going to be the trackside vendor at the Hibbing Raceway and the Grand Rapids Speedway. Of course, Steve Vessel, Hall of Famer at the Hibbing Raceway, father of Derek Vessel. Now, I don't know if he's going to spend that time turning wrenches or if he's going to spend the time watching I don't know what he's going to do, but he's freed up some time. And, you know, just a huge thank you to Steve and Cindy. Steve's been just an ambassador to the sport and, you know, all them years racing and then, of course, doing what he did with the parts business. Congratulations on your retirement from that. Now, our standings, Bert. She's close, man. She is close. This is a close. We talk about tight point battles. We got a point battle. This is a point battle, Bert. Puka, Jeff, and me are all at 40. And you're one behind at 39. It don't get much closer than that. We're right there. Now Mike and Brad, they're behind. They got a little bit of a late start. No, you know, it is what it is. Mike's at 12. Mike said he wants to beat that flat billed Puka dude. So we'll see if we can maybe make that happen. And Brad is at 2, so he got another point this weekend. And this weekend, Bert, we got what do we got? We got
a lot of racing.
Yeah, we got 10 races we're picking. Starting with the Dairyland Showdown at the Mississippi Thunder Speedway in Fountain City, Wisconsin. They're racing the World of Outlaw late models and the USMTS modifieds Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 3 complete shows. And I tell you what, the racing at that event last year was incredible. And if you're going to that event, get it on your calendar to go to Elmer's Auto and Toy Museum. Of course, the Dolman family, Les Dolman, will probably be the one giving the tours there. But get over there because this is the final year. I have not been there. I'm going there this weekend. I'm going to go to Mississippi Thunder. So I am going to go check that out because I've heard a lot about it, but it's going to be amazing. I will get some pictures of that for next week to post up on here, but that is a must-see. You got to get to that. Lucas Oil. Wow, the Lucas Oil Dirt Late models, Ponderosa and Florence. The real question is, okay, now I don't know if you saw this. Did you see Florence had a race this past weekend?
Is that the one that T-Mac won?
He curb stomped them by like 3 seconds. In fact, Josh Rice only got 3rd, right? So Josh Rice, it turns out he is human at Florence. Okay. I believe you picked him for Florence.
Yeah.
I picked T-Mac. I'm going off last week's win. Bert, T-Mac's not a guy that traditionally goes and races for anything less than 10 grand to win, right?
Yeah, that was only 3,000 to win.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Him going to that race for 3,000 to win, which, I mean, if I figured if you would raced last week, you'd have went to Bristol for 25,000, right? Not 3,000 at Florence. How much of that is the Brandon Shepherd factor?
I was just going to say, with Shepard following Lucas now, and the fact that Shepard's leading the points right now.
Yep.
Yes.
We saw that all the time back like Labor Day shootout up in Hibbing, just on a regional deal. You'd see all kinds of guys come the week or two before to kind of feel out the track for Labor Day. I think that's what T-Mac was doing, and he didn't disappoint because he stomped them. And then, of course, we're picking the World of Outlaw sprint cars, and they got a doubleheader over at the Big E, Eldora. So lots of racing action this weekend, Bert. We're going to end with this. What are you most looking forward to?
Well, obviously, I got to go with the races that are going to be in Wisconsin. The World of Outlaw event at MTS, and then also the US MTS modifieds. I mean, you have two of the top divisions, and one in each of the different racing divisions racing in your state. You have to be looking forward to that. And even though Brendan Shepard may not be racing with the Outlaws, there's still going to be some good drivers racing in that event, and it'll be fun to see how although you can consider these two drivers two of the best in the country, but to see how Dustin Sorensen and Jake Tim do against the Travelers.
Right. And you got to remember, Dustin Sorensen is leading USMTS right? And both him and Jake Tim have won USMTS races, of course. It's going to be phenomenal. And that late model field, right? It's not a traditional, like, World of Outlaw. There's going to be a lot of World of Outlaw events this year, Bert, that are going to be around that 20 cars. I really believe that, right? Mm-hmm. This ain't going to be one of them. I mean, you got JD, you got Jimmy Mars, you got Bobby Pierce, you got a lot of top tier drivers that are not Woo drivers coming because it's a triple header. What is it, 10-10-50, right?
And I saw today that Marlar added it to his schedule. So yeah, it's going to be a good show. I mean, it was really good. And Brent Larson he was on the podium last year. Mm-hmm. And he just had a pretty solid run. He got sixth, not this weekend at Atomic. He was just outside the top 5. So Brent Larson is a guy that he's ran well at Mississippi Thunder. Maybe he could kind of perform and get up on the podium as well. And go ahead. I would imagine Jimmy Mars will be racing in that event. So
I would think. I think that Jesse Glenn's the X Factor. He's heading down there in Ricky Lemon's car. So there's going to be. It'll be fun. Plus, you add in. I think some of the Dirt Kings guys are coming over. How does that work? It's on the Dirt Kings schedule.
Well, last time I looked at the Dirt King schedule, it wasn't on there. But basically what it was, if a Dirt King's, this is my understanding, if a Dirt King driver went to the event, they would get like 5 points added to their point total. You don't actually get points for racing, but basically you get points if you show up there, kind of to help get more cars to show up there. That's why it always irked me a little bit when it was on the schedule, because really it's not a race, but you can get some points.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's kind of, and I see why they do it, because Mississippi Thunder has some actual Dirt King shows.
I mean, they started doing that when the World of Outlaws raced at Shawano Speedway. Now, then I could understand it, because some of the locals wouldn't race at Shawano against Outlaws because it's a half mile. So to try to get some more locals to race there, they would give the Dirt Kings drivers some Dirt Kings points if they would go to that event.
Right. So that's the one I'm looking forward to most also is Mississippi Thunder. I mean, amazing facility, great racing, on the wheel. I mean, if you like people charging the cushion on the high side, go watch Jake Tim at Mississippi Thunder. Bobby Pierce, same thing. Can he finish without ripping the whole right side off the car? We'll find out, right? Plus, there's a lot of local racing happening coming up this weekend. Too much to list. We'll talk about that next week. I know you got stuff going on in eastern Wisconsin. The Wissota season is underway, but it looks like there's several tracks poised to open up this weekend. So we're excited to come back and talk about it next week. So, Bert, always fun talking racing with you. A lot to cover, lots to look forward to this year. Again, I'm Ryan Aho. That is the Bert Lehman. Thanks for tuning in to the One to Go Show.